Welcome to the Tay and Todd Washington Commanders podcast, and this is your co-host Tay, brought to you by Fansided. And Todd, we are in the draft, day one last night, and we're here finally. I'm feeling great. Last night, not just 50-50 meh, but in regards to that in the draft and finally being here. How you feeling?
You know, whenever your team doesn't take the players that you wanted, that you watched, that you spent so much time studying and getting to know, and then they end up taking a player that you're not as familiar with because you just didn't think they'd be an option, like you're never going to be excited about that. So, and I think that's what happened yesterday, Tay, especially considering that they moved back with Chris Olave and Jameson Williams on the board. Two guys that, you know, we and a lot of people were high on. And then they took a guy in Jahan Dotson who I had watched some, and I liked it and dislike him, but I just didn't think he was really an option because I didn't expect him to trade back either. So I think that's where that meh comes from. I am happy that they took an offensive weapon. I'm happy that they took a skill player. I'm not so happy that they passed up on Jameson Williams, even more than Chris Olave. I did like Olave. When you watch Dotson, you watch Olave, you can see how they are similar types of players, right? I think Olave is a little bit bigger, like an inch bigger, and he's a little bit faster, like a few tenths of a second. But I think that Dotson is better after the catch. Jameson Williams, though, I think, even coming off the ACL, you know, is just has the potential to be, I think, a really very like a blue chip player. So his career will forever, for Commanders fans, be intertwined with those two guys. But I didn't feel upset. I didn't love the pick. I didn't hate the pick. But I don't. If they traded back just to trade back, I don't like that. But if they traded back because they truly had Dotson, and you know the injury was too much for Williams, and Dotson and Olave were comparable, like, okay, I'm happy that they took an offensive player today. I really can't complain because that's what I wanted. And so I'm happy they took an offensive player who I'm confident will help them immediately.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, for sure. I initially, I have a nickname for him already. And it's going to be the quarterback's best friend. I think he's one of those guys where he's not going to, I think he can be like I'm not going to compare him to Cooper Kupp, but I think he's that type of guy where Carson can rely on him to do those bubble screens, get up the field some. They say he has the best hands in the draft. He'll be able to, Carson can compensate a little bit with his throws, making that big catch radius. So I didn't like the pick initially, I like the player, not the pick. And obviously we thought going into the draft, there was 4 players that we were looking at, potentially 5 with Kyle Hamilton, but we're looking at Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and Chris Olave.
Yeah.
And so we kind of put Jahan Dotson in the burners because we thought 20s was his range and we were going to stay at 11. So, I mean, I guess I'm glad we didn't take Jahan Dotson at 11. That would have been too much.
Right.
My thing is, people say, oh, it's a reach at 16. Well, let's see how he plays first, because if he outproduces many of those guys, is it really a reach or is it a steal? You know, so let's just see what he has. I'm going to hold off expectations on him. I do think he'll be Carson Wentz's best friend, somebody who's reliable, who's going to run his routes, but I'm not going to predict much on him this year. I want to see him play. I don't want to compare him to much. I just want to see him play and see what he does, because I really like, he gives me like this comfortable vibe where he's just going to be reliable. But I'm still meh but I'm coming around to it because
Yeah.
if you take a step back, don't look at the pick. But if you look at the receiver room now, you're like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz has
Yeah.
something to work with. So
Yeah.
I'm coming around to it. Last night I was meh on the way home. I was like, okay, listen to a couple interviews, and now this morning I'm like, I'm just solid. I'm solid right now.
Yeah, I think so. The things that kind of the so people talk about his size. You know, he's just under 5'11". He's about 178. You know, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson obviously was a guy who really wanted, who I think is a better player. He's like 6 foot, like 185. So you know the differences in size here are not significant. It's not a Drake London type of thing. It's about 1 inch and less than 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
His three cone was, I think, a 7.2, 7.23, something like that. And that, I don't love that. If you look back, there are some receivers with, you know, three cones in the 7.2s that have been successful, but in general, overall, it's not an indicator of being a great receiver. You see more of the best guys have in the sixes, 6'8", 6'7". Although obviously there are guys who put that up and then aren't good. So I think those are the concerns for me. Is really the three cone. Even though he is, you know, has a pretty solid release package, is a good route runner. The three cone I don't love, and the size. But you look at, you know, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. You look at Jameson Williams and who they were playing with and what they were playing with and who they had around them. I mean, for one, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave had each other.
Right.
And then together, they had C.J. Stroud, and they had that third receiver who, Enigma, something like that. I can't pronounce his name.
Mm-hmm.
But they had, you know, and it was Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, Jahan Dotson is on Penn State with Sean Clifford, and he doesn't have a receiver opposite of him who's, you know, drawing coverages away. He puts up 91 catches, 1,100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 1/3 of Clifford, the quarterback's passing yards.
Right.
Again, on a team that wasn't good, started 0-5 this year, I think.
Right.
So, you know, in my mind, I could see where if you were to switch Olave and Dotson, I think that if you switch the schools that they went to, I think you're switching the prospects,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's crazy to say. Also, one thing that I really do want to emphasize is that he will play in the slot for Washington. Like, yeah, they'll put him in there, but he is not a slot receiver. He will play multiple positions, but he is not a slot receiver. And people say that based on his size and from college. I mean, we don't even need to talk about the size thing because we can just look at so many receivers in the NFL who aren't massive, who aren't slot guys. But he had 1,148 career snaps outside the numbers. He only had 225 snaps inside the slot tape.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a slot receiver. He can do things from the slot, and he'll be dangerous from the slot. But he'll line up out wide too, and he can be dangerous there. The main concern with him will really just be physicality.
Yeah.
Right. I really don't have questions about whether or not he will come in and contribute day one. Yeah. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think that kind of how you said quarterback's best friend, just along, he's really good against zone and finding soft spots in the zone. He's good off schedule. I'm not worried about, and he's got the best hands in the draft, 2 drops, right? 91 receptions. That means he was easily over probably 120 targets and had 2 drops. So like, it's not one of those things where I'm worried about how much he'll contribute immediately. It's not about his floor. It's really about his ceiling. How good can he be? Yeah. Like, can he be as good as Terry McLaurin? Can you have 2 players of that level? Or is he just going to be a 2? Is he going to be here for 4 years and then he's going to go to another team? That's my question.
See, I think he's one of those guys. I don't think you need him to be I think you just need him to be a cup. Just someone who's like, one of them guys, one of those guys. Like, I can just see him being one of those guys. You're like 3rd and 3. Like, who is that? Man, it's him. He got 10 catches.
Right.
Goodness, like, he's getting on my nerves. Like,
right.
It's players like that in this league. Like, man, he catches the ball again. Like, why is he keep getting? I think he'll be like a pest in that aspect. And that's what I'm excited about because we haven't really had someone like that that's reliable. And
I mean, it was like Pierre Garçon.
Yeah, Pierre Garçon. And I think his off-schedule play is going to fit really well with Wentz. So, I wish he was a little bit bigger, but I think he's going to be an awesome number 2. But there's so much more. I mean, he ran the Wildcat. He could throw the football a little bit.
He can.
Like a gamer, like one of those little guys. Just like a gamer.
He can win at all 3 levels.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's what I like about it. He can do some handoffs with him.
Yeah.
I think coming into the draft, they had two guys. They wanted Drake London and Garrett Wilson
Yeah,
because
I think so.
he's similar to Garrett Wilson, very, very similar to Garrett
Yeah,
Wilson, but he's not as good.
yeah,
Obviously, Garrett Wilson's ceiling is just outrageous,
right.
and I think after that they loved Olave, but I think
Mm-hmm.
he's limited to a Z.
Mm-hmm.
Ron made
Mm-hmm.
mention last night that he could play X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge because then you can do so much more with. Say if Terry does miss 2 games, okay, well
Yeah.
you got Jahan Dotson,
Yeah.
Curtis Samuel. You know they can, and you can do so much mix
And you know
max.
they
And
love their versatility.
I don't think he'll have a problem. He seems like a guy that's going to go in there, put his
Yeah.
lunch pail hat in. He's going to know the offense, and he seems like a Terry to me. He's going to know every single role. Like
Yeah.
man, this dude like. So I'm excited. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
excited in that aspect. But I mean, the upside of Jameson Williams and the upside
Yeah.
of Garrett Wilson and Drake London, it hurt. But
Yeah. It did hurt.
I
It did
mean,
hurt.
it hurt big
We were
time. But
hopeful.
we're very hopeful. We're
Yeah.
hopeful,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we'll hit on a little bit of the second round here in a minute.
Yep.
But as my overall impression of Jahan Dotson is QB's best friend, and I think he's going to be reliable, straight
Yeah.
up, versatile.
I think that's fair. I think that they like you said they liked Olave, but I don't think I think they liked Olave, but they liked Dotson and picks more. Now you know where I was kind of standing, Tay. Like I was cool with trading back, but I was more just focused on picking a really good player. You know, my question is if Jameson Williams is not coming off that ACL, first of all, is he even there at 11?
Right.
Which I don't know how much his draft stock was affected by that and then, was that what it came down to? Because honestly, I don't know how much of a difference it really should make in our heads if he was healthy right now and they passed up on Jameson Williams for Dotson. That would feel crazier, but I don't know if it should feel crazier. I mean, you have a team in the Lions that traded up 20 picks for this guy, So that's what kind of makes you think, sure, maybe Jameson Williams will be another Henry Ruggs, who before the terrible accident he was in was not living up to his draft pick. But maybe he'll be Jalen Waddle. So
I think they wanted to give Carson a fair chance. Carson likes to do these off-season, wide receiver groups, and Jameson would have missed some time, to build that chemistry. And they probably want Carson to have a full off.
They know they need to win now, right? And if there's concerns about Jameson being ready to start the season, starting on the pup, yeah.
I mean, how bad would that be? Look, just think about it. He misses the whole, he had to step back, and it would just been bad. But
yeah,
it's hard to pass up that talent, man.
It is. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do not hate the pick. Their careers are just intertwined. It was when we were on the clock at 11 and we traded back. Now, lots of people are obviously going to be mad we didn't take Kyle Hamilton, who I think would be a good player. I think being on the Ravens, he'll be an even better player. I just didn't. I wanted an offensive weapon, and so we worry about Ron and Marty and Martin, and they're older and how they're philosophically how they operate. But the fact that they were clear on the fact that they needed to add weapons for Wentz and are still need to, that's a win in my book. You added someone who will help you day one, and you added picks while adding that guy. Sure, apparently he was a Cardinals guy. Apparently the Cardinals really wanted him at 23, or the Packers 22, 23. I'm not really going to trip too hard over taking a guy 6 or 7 spots earlier. You know what I mean? Like, if he was a second round, yeah, sure. But he wasn't going to make it to the second round. Also, I knew we expected a run on receivers, but 6 receivers and 10 picks. Also, that was crazy. I think everyone kind of, because I didn't think Treylon Burks would go at 18. Yeah. And between Treylon Burks and Jahan Dotson, personally, I have less questions about Dotson. Burks is bigger. Burks is he's a little slower, but I don't know if Burks can really run NFL routes like that, Yeah, and I'm not saying he won't be a good player, but on college he really was more of a gadget guy. He was a gadget and a back shoulder guy. He was not a big, he wasn't a technician as they call it, where Dotson is more of that, right? So I think between the two, I feel more comfortable with Dotson, especially as it pertains to contributing right away, like ceiling long-term 5 years down the road. I'm not sure, but this year I have more confidence in Dotson. So I don't hate the pick. I didn't love the pick. We'll see what they do with that third and that fourth, because I wasn't impressed for those picks. But if those guys help you day one, that'll look even better. And overall, I'm glad that they added a weapon, Tay, because I think there is potential. He ran a 4.43, right? Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson ran like a 4.39, 4.38. I know we get caught up in the the first number, like, well, I guess the second number, but we're talking about a half of a tenth of a second.
He looks fast.
And he looks fast, right? He looks fast, right? I mean, yeah, the difference between 4.38 and 9 and 4.34 is it's negligible. Yeah. It's beating somebody in a race by like tilting your head. You know what I mean? But I know if Dotson ran a 4.39, he ran a 4.3. But since he ran a 4.43, he ran a 4.4, which means anywhere from 4 to 4.9. But yeah, you wanna get into some of the second round now?
Yeah. Oh, I have a question. Do you think if he ran a 4.3, he would have been on par with Olave as far as where
he would have gone, or
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think if he ran a 4.3, in people's heads, they'd feel better about it because they could say he ran a 4.3. Right. Like, I still think Olave would have gone first, which also, Tay, we need to mention that people were saying that 11 for Olave was a reach, and then the Saints traded up to get him at 11, right? So, but I still think Olave would have gone first, but I think it would have been like, oh, they both ran a 4.3. They're both this. Olave's 5 pounds bigger and an inch taller, but
He went to Ohio State.
Yeah. So if we are going to, all right, round.
Give your grade first. I want to see your grade.
My grade. So you got to factor the trade into it, and you got to factor who they passed up on into it. I'd probably go with the B. I'd go with the B because, we got high praise for taking Jamin Davis at 19 last year, and he did nothing, right? And then so ultimately the reaction immediately has to be more balanced than the extremes that we tend to go to. I'm gonna go with the B because you did add 2 more picks. So from picks 47 to 120, you have 4 picks instead of 2 picks, and you added someone who will help you day one. So, and I guess those were the priorities. We'll find out about the long term later. So I'll give them a B. What about you?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards B plus factor and all that stuff, just because of the trade, obviously, and the value that's on the board still.
Yeah, there's good value. There is good value.
They can use that fourth to either move up in the second and get Nakobe Dean or whoever they want, running back.
Andrew Booth Jr. Yeah.
Or they could use a third and fourth to get back into a second. So that's what I'm factoring in. I'll go B plus. B plus.
Okay, B plus. Now let me ask you this: would you rather they trade up because 2, 3, and 2 4s? How much are those 4s going to help? This year. Again, the more picks you have, the more chances you have to hit, the more chances you have to miss. But if there's some good guys there, would you rather they just say, "Hey, we'll give you this 3 and this 4 for this second," and now we're, what would you prefer?
I think so. I think I would move up because say if you do Nakobe Dean and you get Trey McBride, those are 2 starters right there. Yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so second round. First thing I have to ask you, Tay, is if Malik Willis is there at 47, do you take him?
You have to ponder. For sure. That's tough.
Yeah, I'm not big on second round quarterbacks, but also I thought Malik was going to be a first round guy. The tricky thing about it is second round quarterbacks have expectations,
right?
And I think I agree with you. You have to think about it, but I really want your first, second, and third to be immediate contributors.
Yeah.
So, okay. So looking at this, some of the top guys that are available now. Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Andrew Booth Jr. Lots of people thought would be a first. Nakobe Dean, lots of people thought would be a first. I figured out somewhere along the way that he was not going in the first round. Sam Howell, Jaquan Brisker, Desmond Ridder, both those running backs, Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. Perry and Winfrey. There's no chance they double dip and go Christian Watson or George Pickens, right?
Muma.
Chad Muma, Christian Harris, Trey McBride, Kyler Gordon, Troy Anderson. Those running backs, Breece Hall, Carson Strong, Jalen Petrie, Tariq Woolen. Man. Nick Cross. So I think that without a trade up, Dean and Booth are off the board.
I think so too.
I think a guy like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, I think some of those quarterbacks, Muma and I think McBride and Anderson. I think those guys have a good chance of being there.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron Rivera talked about how that Buffalo player, which I'm sick of hearing about the Buffalo, but that Buffalo player can be a linebacker, which sounds like Troy Anderson, who has a lot of versatility. But yesterday Rivera said they are still of a mind that they need to add weapons for Carson Wentz, which makes me think they brought in Breece Hall, they brought in Kenneth Walker, you've got Trey McBride. Taking the best tight end at 47 feels like good value.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that if those running backs and Trey McBride are there, and Booth and Nakobe Dean are off the board, and they're deciding, between a Chad Muma, Troy Anderson, or one of those running backs and McBride, I think they might lean offense, Tay.
Yeah, I think, man, you're talking about a draft. My goodness.
Yeah.
If they come out of here with that, I think I agree with that. I think it's going to come down to linebacker, and I'm going to say tight end. I don't think running back yet.
Okay.
I think that's why they got that extra third. I think they like a guy like I remember Ron mentioned about something about how these guys play when they play against good fronts like Georgia, and I think Brian Robinson Jr. played pretty well against that front in Georgia. So I could see them targeting a James Cook or a Brian Robinson in the later rounds and hitting on tight end and linebacker right here.
Okay. Yeah, I think Nakobe Dean's there. He's the pick. I think there's a chance they trade up if Nakobe Dean really gets to sliding.
Hey man, I would.
And I think that would be a home run
because alpha.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I guess my question is: you bring in Nakobe Dean. What are you doing with Jamin Davis? Is Nakobe Dean your Buffalo, or is is he a Mike?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
He's a stud. He's a very good player. He's smaller. He's 5'11", right?
Yeah, London.
So, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say I do believe you mentioned that third round pick. I think if Carson Strong is there at 98, I think that's who they're taking at 98. Yeah. I mean, he came in for private workout. He's got the arm. He is a good quarterback. I mean, he is a quarterback prospect who is playing an NFL style offense with command at the line, control at the line, and was putting up NFL numbers and throwing the ball like 50 times a game and still putting up good numbers. So whoever needs to hear that, I think if Carson Strong is there at 98, which I think is possible, he's the pick. But yeah, Tay, I think they're going to be offensive minded, but depending on what defensive players slip to them.
Yeah, and then that fourth round, you got. I mean, don't forget Beavers.
Yeah, exactly. Beavers, the Chenal.
You got pick 113 and pick 120.
Right. Exactly.
So they can use that to move up in the fourth to get a linebacker. So
right.
I think right here you got to go Trey McBride or running back or linebacker. But I hope they're leaning McBride here. Honestly.
Me too. That
would be like perfect. Like, oh my.
I think that as of right now, their week one starting tight end is John Bates, and I think that's a problem. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. As of right now, your number 2 tight end is Sammis Reyes.
Yeah,
that's a bigger problem. So they haven't done anything at tight end, and they could sign somebody after. But I think if McBride's there, getting the number 1 ranked player at a certain position group, almost halfway through the second round is solid. So,
and somebody's going to fall. They're either going to get a really good linebacker, a really good running back, or a really good tight end. So either way,
exactly. They're going to get a good player for sure. Because Tay, I'm just excited for it. It's crazy. We spent all this time talking about the draft, and then it just happens. And more often than not, it doesn't go how you want. But I'm surprised that they didn't want Kyle Hamilton. That was probably the biggest shocker to me. Like I think that everyone outside of that building values that Buffalo position more than them. I think they really want a good player, but they think they can get one later in the draft. They don't think they need to spend 11 on a Buffalo player. So
I think surprising. I think Jack's probably banging the table for one of these linebackers like a Dean or a Muma or Beavers. Yeah. He's like, look, I mean, we can fill that Buffalo nickel, but let me get somebody like one of these safeties maybe, in the later rounds, because Scott needs some toys, and I like the toy that he got, and he got a quarterback now. So I'm curious. The NFC East, man, got better and it's going to be
Yeah,
a physical division. It's going to be a very physical
it is.
division.
Cowboys
So
got worse.
Cowboys got worse.
Cowboys got worse. Eagles got better.
Eagles got better.
Giants had a good
Giants got
first
better.
round. They just have they just don't have a quarterback.
Giants
But
got better, but they're not going to move the needle much this year.
yeah, exactly. But they'll be tough with Aziz Ojolari and Kayvon Thibodeau on the edges. That's going to be tough. And then they got Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas protecting the edges. So they're building a good foundation. They definitely need to find that quarterback, and maybe they'll take one in the second. Yeah. Looking forward to it, round 2 and 3. So we got 2 picks tonight, I guess, at least if they don't trade back again. So, yeah, man, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Still a lot of talent. The board is shaping up nicely where we could come out of here with 3 starters, and
have to.
And even if the linebacker run or quarterback run goes, that means a cornerback may be there, like a Booth or
exactly.
I forget the other guy from Washington, maybe there.
Kyler
Gordon. So we're in a good spot. I wonder if they trade back though to like 52 or 51, because they may be able to still get their guy.
Exactly.
Or one of the guys that they like there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will say the best part of the draft party last night, shout out to Chef Tay, fried up some chicken wings, some catfish nuggets, made mac and cheese. You didn't leave any stuff here, did you?
I don't think so.
Man, because it sounds so good right now. But, man, he was chefing
maybe
it
back
up.
Tonight, so we'll see what.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, if you got it in you, bro. It was very, very good. That was the most exciting part. At that point, it really doesn't matter who we draft because we were eating good. So, shout out to Chef Tay.
Well, we had a good home to watch it in, and beautiful home to watch it in. So it's only right that I cook.
I appreciate that. I'd love definitely if you were to join again tonight so we can overreact to the Commanders taking somebody that we didn't really want.
Right.
This is Todd.
And this is Tay.
We'll be back again soon.